Pat, thanks for taking the time to join me. The first question I got to ask an athlete after a very successful outing, biggest competition of their year, what's the first thing you ate after the CrossFit Games?
Well, I think we had there was that pizza on the floor, and I managed to get a couple pieces and shuttle a few out to my parents and my partner that were watching. And then I actually didn't eat very much for a long time. I had quite a few beers, and I was actually trying to hunt down some dinner, and I didn't do a very good job. So it's actually kind of funny. I think we eat so much during the weekend that sometimes it's actually the last thing you want to do.
Hmm.
So you're kind of on the floor and you have the pizza and you sit down and have a drink and you're like, you know what? I've been like shoveling food in my face when I didn't want to eat for the last 5 days. And it's kind of nice to just not have to. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like that's always the battle. It's like at the end of a competition like that, you actually don't really want to eat.
Well, it sounds like you found a way to get some liquid calories in. Is that like, I know that's obviously a balance, but after that kind of, 5 or 6 days of hard work, do those beers hit you pretty quick?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's especially for me. I mean, I haven't drank in quite a long time, and not that I drink a lot typically, but because we had our baby as well. Like since my wife was pregnant, starting in October, like we just haven't really drank it all anyways because you're just not around it, and you don't. And during COVID and lockdowns, like you're not really doing much social outings. So I feel like I don't know when the last time I had a few drinks was. So it definitely hits you hard.
Well, what is I mean, do you have much of an off season? I know some athletes will take a few weeks, some athletes will get right back to training. What does fitness look like for Pat Vellner for the next few weeks?
Probably basically nothing for the next few weeks. Fun stuff, hiking, go like hang out at the beach, go for whatever. Like I live on Vancouver Island and there's lots of cool outdoor activities to do. I have a bike trip with some friends coming up in a couple weeks and things like that. I think it's going to be a little while before I, pick up a barbell or do a CrossFit Metcon. So I'm going to try to do some fun fitness and do some things with people instead of against the clock. And that's going to be mostly what it is for probably like a month, maybe a month and a half. And then we actually are getting married in mid-September. So we're going to get organized for that. And then I probably won't do a whole heck of a lot until after that's done. And then we'll get back to it and rebuild and look at what the off-season competitions look like and then make a plan from there. But I'm definitely one of the guys that enjoys this time off.
Well,
I'd say I'm one of the lazier games athletes probably in that regard.
Well, I don't think anyone would call you lazy. Congratulations on the upcoming nuptials. For those who might not know, talk a little bit about who your coach is. She's no stranger to a lot of folks who are CrossFit super fans, and what kind of when you might start laying out strategy to prep for next year.
Yeah, so my coach is Michelle Latondra, and she runs the DECA Comp programming, and I've been with her for many years now, and since 2016, basically. Started probably with her after the 2016 games. And I mean, we're going to look at that. And when the information comes out, I feel like right now there's like very little word as far as what's going on. Everything's kind of shrouded in mystery. Like we know the Rogue Invitational is going to happen in October and they've released something about their prize purse, but it looks like it's subject to change and growth and all kinds of interesting stuff. So, there's kind of the Dubai Fitness Championship. The word is they're coming back as well, and there might be some interesting stuff going on there. And I might have to go back and see what's going on at Wodapalooza again if they're gonna have another big crack, because I've that's been a staple my last few years. We'll see. I mean, I think really what's going to happen is depending on what information comes out, we'll make some decisions. I might do a couple of those. We've actually, with my partner, looked at it as kind of a chance to finally travel and do some CrossFit stuff together. I think in my whole career so far, we've both been working or at school, and I've very much been a fly in, fly out athlete. I kind of show up like the day before the event. I do what I have to do, and then I leave immediately, and I'm like back in the office on Monday. So now that she's on mat leave, we have actually a kind of a cool chance to, spend the week and chill and do some of the fun stuff that comes along with the success that we haven't actually been able to do in the past few years. So I think in the off season, we'll do a little bit of that and try to make it fun for ourselves. And then obviously try not to hamper the regular season too much.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your schedule, kind of when you're in season and your training. What does a normal weekday look like for you? You're balancing a lot in addition to what you normally balance. You're a relatively new father as well, so that doesn't just like open up a lot of time for people normally. But take us through a day in the training life, if you will.
I mean, fortunately, right now with the baby, is that Michelle is on mat leave, so she's got more time and she's not working because she works a lot and works very hard. So that's going to be a big change when he gets a little older and she starts going back to work and we're figuring out childcare. But the good news is that we've taken the long road and we've done a lot of higher education. And what comes along with that is usually a little bit of freedom to change your schedule and adapt to what you need. So I get to make my own schedule. She gets to do the same. So for now, what I typically do is I've kind of got what looks like a normal games athlete kind of training schedule. I take one day off a week. I have one active recovery day a week. And usually I'm off Mondays and active recovery Thursdays. And then my other days are kind of anywhere from 1 to 2 sessions coming around games time, maybe the odd triple. But my days off, I work always. So any day that I'm not training, I'm in the clinic. So I'm pretty much on 7 days a week, one thing or another. And for now, it works just fine. And I think, with the baby, that's a relatively new addition. And fortunately, Michelle's got the time right now. So I help out where I can. And right now, I'm spending a lot less time training at the moment. I'm sort of paying down some of those debts that I've accrued training for the games the month leading up. So I'm happy to help out now. And I think when she goes back to work, I'm going to shuffle my work schedule and we'll probably just work different days. So one of us can be on deck all the time. And like I said, those are sort of the luxuries that come along with the long haul that we did in higher education. So hopefully we can maintain that and juggle it for a little while. And in the short term, I'm going to try my best to take care of her when she takes care of baby. He doesn't really need me yet. So we'll look forward to that day when it comes.
You're just another kind of fuzzy object in the periphery. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really, he needs mom. And that was a nice thing. Obviously leading into the games, there was a little less guilt there because there's really not a lot that I can do for those first 4 or 5 weeks. My job is to take care of Michelle and her job is to take care of baby. And then it comes first full circle. Right. So it's worked pretty well. And I think, like I said, we've got a reasonably adaptable lifestyle and we'll make it work. So I have every confidence in us. We've been juggling a lot for a long time and it's not going to be any different.
Well, tell us, folks, for those who don't know, I mean, you do have a job beyond just being a games athlete, which is kind of the exception rather than the rule some of these days. When you see a lot of the top performers in CrossFit, a lot of folks are doing this full time. I talked to Brent Fikowski, fellow Canadian, a couple of days ago. He worked full time as an accountant, and now he's kind of full time training. You're still juggling that. So, what is your kind of professional life for those who might not know? And has it ever come up that have you ever thought about transitioning over to being a full-time athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously had the opportunity. I think the timing of my career sort of steered me away from that. And I think it's a very personal choice. I think some people need to be focused all on one thing. And I've always kind of found that if I don't have more than one thing going on, it stresses me out a little bit. I sort of hyper-focus on something and I dwell on little things and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So if I don't have the time and I don't have the choice, it's easy to manage lots of things because, I get done what I need to do at the gym and then I have to leave and I have to think about something else because like my patients don't care like what about my workout I did this morning. They need their care, right? So it's nice for me to have something that forces me to shift gears and not think about it anymore because otherwise, I find I can get hung up, thinking about today's session or tomorrow's session or small details or what could I have changed or what could I have done. And then your mind just keeps racing and racing. So fortunately, when my career kind of took off, I was in school and there wasn't really the choice. My program didn't have a way to take a year off and come back. So it was either leave the program and, sacrifice your future career or stick it out for the short term. And then when you graduate, you can always take time off before you start working. But I always felt that, if I'm going to sharpen those tools, it's nice to just keep them sharp instead of putting that down for 5-6 years and then coming back and just cracking your knuckles and saying, hey, I'm going to get back to it now. I think it takes some time to get your brain back working clinically and, make sure that you feel confident in your skills. So, I practice a lot. I do a lot of rehab. I do a lot of manual care, a lot of active therapy. So it works well. Like the worlds merge a little bit. And I think, some of my exercise knowledge and things like that is helpful. And I think patients are generally interested. A lot of people know that I compete outside of work. And so a lot of people are kind of interested in it, and it's kind of fun. So I've always found it to be a good way to just forcibly extract me from the gym and force me to do something different. And at the end of the day, I'm going to like be in that career for years. That's the end game, right? I'm not going to be an athlete forever. I think there's a shelf life to that. And I don't think it means I'm going to disappear from the space immediately and forever, but I think that it means that I have to still keep that afloat, right? And stay focused on it. So I don't work full time. It's not, I want to give that impression like I'm doing things crazy, but I do a few clinic days a week, and I try my best to do it in a way that allows me to work and stay sharp in those things, keep my clinical mind sharp, keep my clinical tools sharp, but it doesn't get in the way of my training in any way. I don't think that I give up anything on the training front by doing that. I basically just think that if I didn't work, I would just waste more time. A 2-hour session would take 3 hours, and I would spend maybe a little more time doing some recovery stuff, but I maybe wouldn't. I would maybe just watch Netflix. So.
Yeah, I mean, this might keep you from going down the rabbit hole of responding to Instagram comments, so could be a blessing.
Yeah, which is exactly, everybody knows that's the healthiest thing you can do with your time.
You got to obsess over those. You got to care you got to respond to every troll. I'm absolutely kidding.
Yeah, well, I know. I'd be lying if I said I didn't see them sometimes and feel like I wanted to, but I'm pretty good for that.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about this year's games. And this is the tough question I have for you. Not the first games where you started a little bit on the back foot and really had a gradual kind of comeback and rise back up the standings. Talk a little bit about that, and talk a little bit about the first day of competition where you started a little bit further back in the pack. Why do you think that was? Is it something, maybe that first event, something you were underprepared for, or did it kind of surprise you?
It was a bit of, I don't know, a few things. I think part of it was just bad strategy, bad planning. And part of it was just, I think the expectation that I had on the kayak was just, I got surprised a little bit there. Like, I'm a strong puller, a strong rower. I've kayaked a few times. Like, I wasn't concerned about that. And I thought that in that workout, that was the more important piece. So I didn't swim super hard. I tried to conserve my arms a little bit in the swim and get myself out of the water. Like, I think I got out in late 20s probably. But the plan was to just get out and feel good and then attack the paddle, because that's where you're going to spend more time. Of the two, it's probably my stronger movement. And in the past, when we've had events like that with like the swim, paddle, and stuff like that, that's where I caught everybody. It was like, I'm passing 7, 8, 9, 10 athletes on the paddle, and, I'm just getting by on the swim. So I looked at it like that, and I think I let myself fall back too far in the swim without the urgency. And then for a couple reasons, I think one thing, when you're in a pack on the kayak, it's mentally easier to stay with people, and you also get the advantage of like riding people's surf a little bit to pull you along. So being farther back, I think you lost a little bit of that draft advantage and that mental load advantage. And I just frankly I wasn't able to paddle as well as I thought. I struggled a lot on the paddle. I felt like I was really plowing water, and I wasn't cutting through the water nice. And I basically just, no matter what I did, it felt like I had one speed. And I tried a few different things for kind of the first 20 minutes, and it became pretty clear pretty quickly that like I had about one speed, and I could work really hard and move slow, or I could work a little less hard and still move slow. So I was just trying to like not give up too many places. It was frustrating because it was a long haul across the water to have, another 30 minutes of sitting in the boat and being like, man, I'm losing a lot of ground and there's nothing I can really do about it. And so, I think on the one hand, it's easy to get into a pit of despair when that's the case, and you've just got about an hour to think about how shitty you are. But on the other hand, I was able to kind of come to terms with things and move past it by the time I even got to shore. So it was really, it was clear what was happening and what the finish was going to be, probably a bottom 5 finish. And I was like, well, the good news is I've done this before and I know I can do it. The bad news is I have to do it again. And so, yeah, I mean, the good thing was that that next event was a good workout for me on paper. And I kind of figured I would be able to kick back that comeback on the right foot and get things going. And I basically just, in 2018, when I had that crit race and I think I finished 36th in event one. We had 4 events on the day one, and I finished the day one in like 6th place or something like that. So looking at that day, we had 4 events again. It was about the exact same structure. There was more events on the weekend. So I was like, hey, if you just can get back to make sure you're in the top heat, maybe even in the top 5 by the end of the day, then that's a good day. And you can just kind of move past that finish and whatever. So like I said, a little bit of maybe a strategic miss. Maybe I should have pushed harder in the swim than I did. And I think I obviously I had a different expectation on the kayak than what ended up being the case, which was very frustrating. But I was happy with the rest of the day. I think I surprised myself on the sprint a little bit. But I think that those next 2 events, I made very aggressive decisions because I was already kind of backed into a corner. So those 2 performances, I think maybe I wouldn't have been quite so strong had I not been in that position. So, you have to take the good with the bad. And I was able to finish the day in a good enough place to just move past it mentally and be like, all right, reset for after. And we had the day off, right? So I could like have the day off, just mental reset and be like, okay, competition starts Friday, and then we're good.
I appreciate you seeing the silver lining in that, and it obviously paid dividends over the course of the week as you rocketed up the standings. Let's just focus a little bit. Were there any of your competitors who surprised you? Maybe folks who you hadn't competed against before or hadn't seen in a while. Anyone who brought a package to the games that kind of made you kind of raise an eyebrow and go, "Oh, I need to start paying attention a little bit more to this guy."
It's kind of funny. I paid pretty close attention, so I don't think very many people surprised me. At least not on the positive end. Some people just have tough weekends for one end or another. So there was a few of those where you saw people struggle and you thought, oh man, I thought that so-and-so would maybe do a little better at that event. And that happens all the time for any variety of reasons, right? Like same thing that happened to me in event one. Like people can just get caught with a bad plan or a bad whatever. And sometimes it's really hard to recover. Like I was fortunate to have an easy snapback. And that doesn't always happen that way. So I don't know. I think that it was nice to see some of the guys like Brent have a good weekend and show why they've always been so strong and that they're still there, right? I think it was nice to see, as much as in a year where the word was sort of like, hey, this is going to be the changing of the guard and these young guys are coming to take over and whatever, all you 30-year-olds are over the hill. Like, I mean, it was still me in second, still Brent in third, still BKG in fourth. It's still the same guys and they've still got it, right? So I think that was really cool to see that. As much as things have changed in the last couple of years of wild formats and, seeing a less deep competition field where some people made a name for themselves, at the end of the day, like the guys are still there, right? So that was kind of cool. And of course, people like Justin Medeiros had a great weekend. And I mean, that wasn't super surprising. I think we knew he was very strong and he would likely have a good weekend. So I think he really got in his own, especially in the mid part of the weekend and put together a lot of really strong finishes and just never had a misstep. So I don't know. I don't think there's anybody that really surprised me on the other direction. Like that was super strong that I didn't think had that sort of potential. I thought Saxon Panchik had a really great weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I would have put, no slight to Saxon. I would have put him maybe top 10, but maybe just. So him finishing in 5th was awesome. And he was really strong again in like the midweek. But yeah, it was interesting to see. Lazar Jukic was awesome. He was a guy that I competed against not that long ago in Dubai though. And I kind of saw that one coming. He would have been a sleeper pick for me that people might not have seen, but I knew it was going on there. Henrik Haapalainen was a good one, like a guy that I think came in as a rookie that no one knew at all and cracked the top 20. So it's good. I mean, some guys come in with like a little more hype than others. And so you maybe that representation relative to expectation looks different, but there's some good young guys coming in and it's cool to see. But like I said, I gotta still root for my boys. And I'm glad that the old guys are still hanging in there and showing that we're not going to get out of the way. And to be honest, I think you saw it near the end of the weekend that those guys were the guys who were strong in the last days. Not exclusively, but by and large, it was like a lot of the veterans who, it's 15 events. It's a long weekend. And those guys, like even guys like Cole Sager putting together like really strong finishes on the last day, last day and a half, that's how you finish at the top. Like those last day, 300 points are still 300 points.
Well, there are two things that are constant in life: taxes and a pan chick finishing in the top 10. So, I'm glad you highlighted that
Keeping
one.
the legacy alive. Totally. That's great.
Last question I have for you: What are some things you might like to see change about the games? It could be the way programming is approached. It could be a certain type of programming. It could be a modification for the qualification system. But if you got to control Dave Castro for a whole season, what are some things that you might tweak a little bit?
Well, one that shoots to the top of my mind is the way that they've done the cuts. I think this year was actually a very good and appropriate cut structure. I maybe would have given one more event before the cut to 20. Mm-hmm. I think giving 9 events to cut to 30 and then only 1 to cut to 20 seemed a bit weird. But I think the problem with it is that athletes didn't know about it until they were already there. In a year where it was hard enough and expensive enough to get to Madison, I thought that was a bit of a slap in the face to a lot of athletes, particularly international athletes. It was a very clear thing that did not really affect the American athletes, but really affected the Europeans and Australians. So that I think is a bit unfair. You should let these people make those decisions for themselves when it has that big of a financial implication. Like adults, like people can decide whether or not to compete. That's what Lazar Djukic did in 2019. He won the Serbian national championship, decided he was not ready to compete at a level he wanted, came to the games in 2021 as a rookie and was awesome. And I think that people should be allowed to make that decision. That I would like to see change. If there's going to be cuts, we should know about them well in advance. I don't think it changes the way anybody will prepare for the competition. I don't think it gives anyone an advantage or a disadvantage. It's irrelevant. It's just information to help you decide if this year you want to commit, $10,000 to making it to come to the games. I think that hopefully we see a turn away from the online formats. Obviously having to compete online for me all the way through the semifinals was not great. I mean, it's been a long time, but I've definitely felt it when I was at the games that I didn't feel quite as comfortable or like myself until maybe the day 3, that I was loose and rolling. So, it is what it is, and it's a necessity, and I'm glad we did it because of where the world was. But having to if we're going to do quarterfinals and semis, like it felt like we kind of did the same thing twice in a row. So I don't know. I don't mind the open quarterfinal, semifinal system. But I don't know. I would selfishly, I'd like to see more prize money at the semifinals, and I would like to see a little bit better communication in terms of formatting and things like that. But I think the programming was fine. This year, the programming was fun. I don't think it didn't beat the shit out of anybody. I didn't feel that bad by the end of the competition. There were some curveballs in there. It was it's funny. I almost think it was like skill heavy, except that we also had like 5 really heavy workouts. So it's I think it was reasonably well balanced, but everything had every event almost had a skewing one way or another. It was like, there weren't that many events where every movement was valued the same, which is fine. It's just like some years you have that, some years you don't. Right. So, we were on our hands for 3 or 4 events, and so it's just but then you did a heavy deadlift, 2 heavy cleans, and a heavy snatch, and a heavy yoke. You know what I mean? There was a lot of elements for everybody. So I actually thought it was pretty good. I wouldn't do a whole lot else. Communication's one that just hurts me. So I feel like that would be my big one.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Pat, where's the best place for people to follow along with you, your training, especially as we head into next season?
I mean, basically just Instagram is the only thing I have going on. I'm Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is @PVellner and my Twitter is @VellnerP. It's the opposite. So it's weird. Somebody else has @PVellner and I don't know who they are, but it's some weird political page. So don't follow them.
If it makes you feel better, when we started our Facebook page for BarBend years ago, there was a Barbara End, and she had BarBend on Facebook, not on Instagram. Instagram was fine, but it was just come on, Barb. Come on. What are you doing here?
What do you want? What do you want for me to change, for me to get this from you?
Yeah,
put her in an offer.
I'm not about to try and bribe a 70-year-old Midwesterner. Not worth it. Pat, really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you.